Hello, everyone in construction land. Welcome to our podcast, Construct-ive Conversations, your source for anything and everything construction related and a little bit more. I'm your host, Eddie Thompson, CPA and CCIFP, and this podcast is brought to you by the fine folks of and my employer, Brown, Edwards and Company, CPAs. So this is our inaugural episode, and we're starting it off with a bang. Our guest today is well known in the West Virginia construction landscape. He's a friend of the firm, an advocate for all, a converted legal litigator turned legislative lobbyist, the Count of Construction, the favorite son of Fairmont, the Chief Executive Officer of the Contractors Association of West Virginia, the one, the only, Jason Pizatella. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Eddie, thanks for having me. It sure is my pleasure to be here with you and my friends at Brown Edwards.
Well, it's our honor to have you. Everything that you do for the construction industry in West Virginia, it was definitely our honor to have you as our first guest of this inaugural kickoff to the Brown Edwards Construct-ive Conversations podcast. No one will ever be able to take it away from you that you were the first guest. So I know that probably holds as much honor as, not much of anything, but still in our little realm of public accounting and the construction industry, we're definitely glad to have you here. So, Jason, please tell us a little bit about your upbringing and your history with the state of West Virginia.
Well, thanks again for having me, and I'm honored to be the first guest. You certainly picked a great time in the industry to launch this. It's a busy time, maybe the busiest time in the construction industry, not just in West Virginia, but nationwide. And I joined the Contractors Association of West Virginia on October 1st of 2022. So I'm coming up on my 2-year anniversary. As you said, I'm a lawyer by training. I was a practicing lawyer for about 15 years before joining the association. Of those 15 years, I spent about almost 8 years of those in state government in various leadership roles in the beginning of the Manchin administration, but throughout the duration of the Thompson administration, and for almost the first year of the Justice administration before joining the law firm of Spillman, Thomas, and Battle. I grew up in Fairmont, went to undergraduate school and studied political science and economics before going to law school at WVU. I guess the flying WV probably gave it away. I moved to Charleston after law school. My connection to the construction industry was somewhat unique, having represented some clients in the industry. But right around 2014, when the legislature and Governor Tomlin at the time, with the help of CAWV, was grappling with a funding shortfall for transportation infrastructure in West Virginia, that's when then Governor Tomlin put together what was then called the Blue Ribbon Commission on Highway Construction, and and he asked me to chair that commission. We did that from 2014 all the way through 2015, working with various stakeholders, and that's how I got to meet my predecessor at CAWV, and that was my connection, my first connection to CAWV and to the industry was through that exercise. And so having spent all that time in state government and private practice, when Mike Clauser decided to announce his retirement in the summer of 2022, this was just an association that really held a very close place with me because of the people that are in it. You know, the transportation industry, both vertical construction, highway bridge construction, and utility construction. We cover the whole gamut at CAWV. It affects everybody's life in West Virginia, right? Whether you live here, work here, vacation here, go to school here, it affects everybody's life. And so it was the only job that I would have ever left private practice for, because I had a great job practicing law. And when Mike decided to retire, I interviewed for the position and was very lucky that the board of directors chose me, and I got to. And every single day I get to work with some really great members and staff here at CAWV. It's how I got my first connection with you and the great team at Brown Edwards. And you know, I tell our staff all the time, we don't have an association without our members. And it's a great time to be in the industry, and I'm just honored to be a part of it.
Great. I know everybody's ecstatic to have you on board. And the history of construction in West Virginia is deep and rich. Certainly goes back a long ways, and so does the work with the Contractors Association. But tell us a little bit more, and you got into it about the Blue Ribbon Panel and your career as an attorney. Do you see the construction litigation landscape the same as it was 10 years ago, or has it evolved?
Well, I think over the last decade, with the change in the political landscape in West Virginia and in the leadership of not just the state legislature, but also in the administration, some of the changes that the state legislature has made over the last 10 years or so has really improved the business climate for not just contractors, but all businesses. You know, you're always going to have lawsuits. You're always going to have mistakes that are made that lead to litigation. You're always going to have disputes that lead to mediations and arbitrations, and things happen in business. That's just the nature of being in business. But I think the legislature over the last decade, in enacting reforms like right to work, things like standardizing some of the legal climate, legal reforms, have really made West Virginia more in line with some of our other states, both surrounding and not surrounding, so that it's more welcoming for again, not just contractors, but all businesses, both contractor members and associate members, people that do business in West Virginia that support the construction industry. So the short answer to your question, Eddie, is I think things are more stable. Things are. I think the outlook is bright for the industry. The funding is there for the next 3 or 4, 5 years to keep our members busy and to keep those that support our members, whether it be law firms, CPA firms, insurance companies, bonding companies. I think people are going to be busy, and I think that the policy reforms that the legislature has made over the years has really made West Virginia an inviting place to do business and a stable place to do business for years to come.
Well said. You, in your opinion, do you believe that your background in legal and litigation has helped you in your transition from being an attorney to being the chief executive officer of the CAWB?
It certainly helps. I know it didn't hurt. I joked in the interview process, although I was serious about it, even though it did generate some laughs. A lot of the contractor members that interviewed me, among the other candidates, I think the joke is that most contractors don't really like lawyers because they may have a negative opinion because of some experience they had over the years. But I think my unique background, having worked at the legislature, having worked in state government, but also having been a practitioner and having represented the industry, both as a lawyer, but also as a lobbyist, and having worked in the industry on the Blue Ribbon side and helped with some of the funding initiatives over the years, I think really helped. But also as a lawyer, you kind of help, you think about things differently, right? When you're trained as a lawyer, you think about things like risk management and the ability to avoid risk and to help, whether it be contractor members or associate members, when it comes to their business practices, think about things differently. So from my perspective, I use that in the interview process as a positive and not as a negative, to help the association, from a different perspective. It's always hard following a legend. And, I followed a legend in Mike Clauser, who was a legend, not just in the industry, but a legend in the nonprofit association landscape throughout West Virginia. And Mike's background was not just in nonprofit association management, but his background was in journalism and marketing. And he was a heck of a writer and was the editor-in-chief of West Virginia Construction News Magazine for almost 40 years. And he had a skill set that I just didn't have. I can write like a lawyer, but I couldn't write like a journalist. So everybody brings different skill sets to the table. And, we have a small staff of 7 people. And I think that we have not skipped a beat in the transition, and we provide the services that our members have come to expect over the years. And it's just a different, I just bring, I think, a different viewpoint having that lawyerly training, and I think in the long run it'll help the association and help the construction industry, just in a different way into the future from 2024 on into the future.
Yep. Yes, definitely. Now that we're a couple months out of the legislative session, what are the biggest takeaways from the recent legislative session?
Oh, I would say there's a couple, Eddie. One is that obviously we're in the middle of an election year, not just presidential election year, but also a big governor's race in West Virginia. So now that the legislative session is now a few months behind us, everybody's attention is focused on the general election. Obviously, Governor Justice, he's in his last year in office. He's running for the Senate. He's going to win that race. And so politically, it's always great to have surpluses. I think the big question on everyone's minds is how long are those surpluses going to last? Because just a year ago, I know you and all your colleagues at Brown Edwards were trying to figure out, okay, how is now the personal income tax cut that the legislature enacted a year ago? How is that going to affect the state and all your clients going forward? Well, so now here we are a year removed from it all. People are looking forward to saying, okay, how is it going to affect the state's budget in the years to come? And so that was the big takeaway for me, because in election year, a lot of times the legislature doesn't really deal with a lot of the harder issues because politically they don't want to anger the voters, right? When they have to go to face the voters again. So we were fortunate as an industry to get another lobby successfully for another $150 million in additional money from the general fund for secondary road paving. Again, something that's very politically popular that the legislature passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. We were able to lobby successfully for another $50 million for the construction of a new laboratory down at West Virginia State University for agriculture. That's above and beyond the $250 million that we lobbied successfully for the construction of a consolidated state laboratory in South Charleston for the state medical examiner's office and a few other agencies that's going to be built here in the next couple of years. So, I mean, when you factor in all of the investments from Roads to Prosperity from the state level and the state's West Virginia's share of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act from Washington, it's going to be over $1 billion just this year alone, this fiscal year. And there's going to be another $1 billion on top of that if we have this conversation a year from now. So, it's a great time to be in the industry. It's not always going to be that way. So we have to really maximize the opportunities that we have right now as an industry and make sure that we keep this momentum going just as best we can beyond the November 2024 election.
So you mentioned the Roads to Prosperity. How has that impacted West Virginia and to what extent?
Eddie, I don't like to use cliches very often, but I think the word transformational is probably appropriate here. I mean, it seems like West Virginia about every 10, 15 years would go to the voters and ask for their approval to have an investment of some type in the state's roads and bridges. And I think the last big investment was in 1996, prior to 2017. So the state was overdue for an investment in its roads and bridges, and I think the condition of the roads and bridges showed it. I think the governor said in his first inaugural address, in his first State of the State address, he said that you could not drive from point A to point B, oftentimes without having to, budget for a front end alignment on your car. Now, he was being somewhat facetious when he said that, but a lot of people really felt that way. And so politically, he was in a honeymoon period in his first year in office. He was able to convince the legislature to enact one of the largest infrastructure packages in West Virginia's history. It ended up being about $2.4 billion, billion with a B total. When you factor in Roads to Prosperity, all of the DMV fees, the sales tax on gasoline, the privilege tax on the purchase of motor vehicles, and the West Virginia Turnpike, component with the tolls on the Turnpike. And you see projects in all 55 counties. You see that one of the three largest projects projects that have ever been let in West Virginia's history. Corridor H, Coalfields Expressway, King Coal Highway, projects that would have never been built had Roads to Prosperity not passed. But I think it's important for your listeners to recognize, as I'm sure they do, all of those big projects are really important, right, in the grand scheme of things. But if people's potholes aren't getting patched and the regular roads that they drive from their house to school, from their house to church, from their house to vacation, from their house to, as Governor likes to say, if Toby and Edith can't get in their minivan and drive from their house to Go-Mart without busting their car up, they're not happy. And therefore, they could not care less whether Corridor H ever gets built, right? So while the big projects are great, it's the everyday road paving and whether the grass gets cut, whether the guardrails get fixed, whether the medians get smoothed out or the median barrier walls get fixed when a car plows into them. It's those little things that people pay attention to that Roads to Prosperity has really helped West Virginia get caught up on, with years and years and years of deferred maintenance. And the industry has benefited from it because a lot of that is contract work that our members are doing in addition to our state and federal partners. And so it's been great for the industry, and we're just glad to really provide that boost to our state's economy that has provided over $1 billion in a return on investment.
Yeah, definitely a big investment into infrastructure in the state of West Virginia the last few years. So you said to me before that you have your big three, and then there's the real big three, and you've mentioned some of each of these, but can you talk more about those?
Yeah. So I have a big three that I mentioned, right? Corridor H, Coalfields Expressway, King Coal Highway. But there's also a big three legislatively that I mentioned in talks that I give to groups that are asking about kind of the state of the industry. And the other big three is, I've already mentioned one of them, and that's the Infrastructure Investment Jobs Act that the Congress passed in November of 2021. It's hard to believe we're now almost 3 years into that. And then, of course, you have the Inflation Reduction Act that passed in 2022 that provided a large-scale investment in things like electric vehicle charging for West Virginia, things like the completion of other aspects of investments in modernizing the electrical grid in West Virginia. And then there's the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023 that passed a year after that. In the summer of 2023, that had a provision in it that allowed for the completion of the Mountain Valley Pipeline in West Virginia. That was big, not just for the construction industry, because we were the ones building it, but it was big for the Gas and Oil Association of West Virginia, and it was big for the Manufacturers Association of West Virginia. And so between gas and oil, manufacturers, contractors, and the Chamber of Commerce, our four associations that were on record years ago with support of Mountain Valley Pipeline, the fact that that project is now in service, as you and I sit here today, Eddie, has now been in service now for about 10 days after 10 years worth of construction, I think would not have been possible but for the passage of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. So those three acts passed by Congress, and all but one of them were passed in a bipartisan fashion, I think has really had an impact on West Virginia. And so, a lot of times people say that not much is getting done in Washington these days. And if all you do is read, the news clips and focus on just kind of what Fox News or what CNN or MSNBC is really focusing on that particular day, you may get that impression. But for those people that are really paying attention, there's been a lot of bipartisan stuff that's happened over the last 4 years, and West Virginia has really benefited from it.
We definitely appreciate all the benefit that we're getting from it. I know my tires and my alignments and everything with my car definitely appreciates it. You joke about it, and it does sound facetious, but it's true. If we're not able to make the daily commute or the typical drive to the store without hitting potholes, then that ends up being the only thing we think about. And like you said, not whether a highway gets built that connects one remote part to another remote part. So
that's right.
Definitely a lot of great things going on with our infrastructure, and not just the highway infrastructure. I know that the CAWV has had the executive director of the West Virginia Water Development Authority, Marie Prezioso, who's a friend of our firm also and a friend of mine. You all have had her speak at the Expo's breakfast awards meeting, and you also are scheduled to have her speak at the summer annual meeting at the Greenbrier this summer. So could you talk about some of the impact of the Economic Enhancement Fund that the WDA is responsible for?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, as I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, we have not just the highway aspect of the industry, but we also have the utility that includes water, sewer, and stormwater, and we also have the building side, vertical construction that includes schools and the like. And the legislature, in its wisdom, in 2022, passed the West Virginia Economic Enhancement Grant Fund Act. And the legislature appropriated, they've appropriated a lot since then, but they started out with $250 million back in the fall of 2022 that was appropriated to WDA. And as Director Prezioso said back in March at the keynote address that she gave back to Expo, they have since leveraged that into over $1 billion worth of water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure investments in West Virginia. And it's really unprecedented to have all of that work being done in such a really short period of time. And the reason why it was done in such a short period of time is because some of that money got combined with some investment from the federal government through the American Rescue Plan Act. And some of those dollars had a deadline from the federal government of having to be expended by December 31st, 2024. So obviously we're coming up on the end of 2024, and those dollars have to be spent. So a lot of these projects are getting designed and out for bid in the second and third quarter, some in the fourth quarter, but for the most part, the second, third quarter of 2024. And so that's why it's such a busy time for the industry. I mean, people ask me all the time, they say, are you worried that all of these projects are coming out all at once? And while sometimes I worry about it, I worry more, Eddie, though, about what the alternative would be, about if we didn't have enough work, right? I worry about more people sitting at home without a job than I do about us having too much work, because we have enough contractors. As I tell our political leaders, our contractors are ready. We will be there to deliver exactly what our state and federal partners ask us to deliver, because that's our job. And so from the water, sewer, and stormwater side, it's been unprecedented. And I know we'll probably talk about this in a minute, but the legislature has also invested another $250 million in school construction in the last year or two. And so our building construction members are also really busy investing in our communities with new schools, and so I just think it's a really good time to be in the industry, and it's a time for not just those that are in construction, but those are members who are supporting those contractor members, because it's a busy time, and as I said, we have to be there to deliver what our state government agency partners ask us to.
You're right. There is a lot of school construction, a lot of consolidation over the years, and just frankly, a lot of new school building of replacing old schools. The new Herbert Hoover High School is a great example of building a state-of-the-art school. Unfortunately, they had tragedy and their school was flooded, and it had to be replaced. Do you see spending going up or remaining constant with the SBA and with school building?
Well, here's what the director of the SBA told CAWV just about a month ago. The agency, the SBA, has provided funds for 5 years worth of spending within the last year of construction. It's not going to be that way forever, because the state has front loaded a lot of money over the last year. Historically, the School Building Authority invests about $60 million annually in school construction. That's usually what they have. Anywhere from 51 to 60 million a year, depending on, because they get their money from the lottery fund, the state lottery. So that's usually what they get, right around 60 million a year. This year, they got their usual allotment of 60 million, but they got an extra 150 million from the legislature a few months ago, on top of the extra 100 million they got from the legislature a year ago. So you factor in all of those projects. Every superintendent that came before the SBA with a project this year, their project got funded. Superintendents are used to getting turned away a year or two and have to come back year after year after year to get funded. So to do 5 years worth of projects in 1 year is unheard of, and it won't always be that way. So the short answer to your question is the spending is going to continue that way for the next year, maybe year and a half. But as the director of the SBA told the superintendents, all 55 county superintendents about a week or two ago, it's not going to be that way forever. So I would say, right around the summer, fall of 2025 into 2026, things are going to right size themselves. And unless the legislature changes the annual allotment from the lottery fund, things are going to, return back to normal. But they were able to tackle a lot of school construction needs within the last fiscal year.
Well, that's definitely good information for our vertical builders and those that build a lot of schools. It's a great investment back into the state, to build new schools, and it attracts out of state residents that want to move to our area when they have nicer schools to come into also.
Yeah, schools, roads, and broadband, man. I mean, if we don't have those three things, a lot of times site selectors that come in, and whether it's Berkshire Hathaway Energy, Nucor, Form Energy, Green Power Motors, a lot of the new companies that are calling West Virginia home now. If we can't check those boxes right away, a lot of times they don't even consider West Virginia. So the fact that we've made those investments in West Virginia in the last couple of years, I think is really what's keeping West Virginia in the game for some of those larger projects.
Right. So another thing I wanted to talk to you about, Jason, and I know that the CAWV has been in cooperation with the West Virginia Department of Transportation on work zone safety initiatives. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably one of the number one issues that we've worked on, not just legislatively over the last couple of years, but also with our DOT partners, but also our partners with the state police, the Public Service Commission, and our local law enforcement agencies. Every year in April, there is Construction Work Zone Safety Week. We participate annually and have for decades, as best I can tell. And we do that because the number of work zone fatalities has unfortunately been going in the wrong direction, Eddie. And you drive that section of I-64 between Charleston and Taze Valley more than I do, and you've seen the targeted enforcement that's out there, as I know a lot of people have, because we're doing everything we can to try to get people's attention about slowing down and paying attention in work zones. I helped write the legislation almost a decade ago to first put the law in place to ban texting while driving, and to use and to prohibit the use of handheld devices while driving. It's hard to believe it's been 10 years since that bill passed. First passed. The legislature amended it a few years ago to modernize it. But what I tell people all the time is, look, this is where the men and women, this is their job. I mean, think about if you were in your job and somebody was driving around, driving by you at 80 miles an hour, or driving, and was texting, or was doing a Facebook post, or was looking at a restaurant review or something, and was just not paying attention, to put your life in danger. We had one of our members lost one of its employees back in March over in Jefferson County. She was working a job as a flagger. Speed was not a factor on this one, but it was just somebody who was distracted and was impatient. And we lost a flagger, a lady who was 62 years old, who was on a job. And so, losing one person is too many. And so I know it's been a priority of Governor Justice's, and it's a priority of Secretary Riston's. And so we work annually with our partners to make construction work zone safety a priority on the transportation side, and also on the building side. The first week of May every year is Construction Work Zone Safety Week. and we participate every year to draw attention to Work Safety Week to make sure that people are paying attention when they're working at heights vertically so that we can prevent falls any way we can. Because work safety is one of the things that we care most about. Because like I said at the beginning, if we don't have our members, we don't have an association, and we don't have members without their employees. And so keeping them safe is one of the most important things we do, and that's why we pay such close attention to
it. And as drivers, it's not that hard. I mean, you mentioned that I've seen my fair share of driving through construction zones. I go through the Nitro St. Albans construction every day, back and forth, and the traffic patterns change constantly. So you always have to be on heightened alert of your surroundings when going through there. It's sometimes speed will get away from you, and you'll go over that 55 mile per hour mark and realize it before you know it. But you just slow down and be careful and watch out for others.
Yeah.
So Jason, what do you see as the biggest advantage right now for contractors?
I think the biggest advantage is the fact that it's so busy that there's so much work out there that if the contractors can be as busy as they want to be, into 2025, even into 2026. But with that, I think comes a challenge of the recruitment and retention, for workforce. I mean, that's why our CAWV education and workforce development committees have been working so closely together to try to make sure that our members are, have the workers that they need. And so that's why we've been working so close with the Department of Education at the state level, and also the community technical college systems to try to make sure that the members have workers that are trained, because the projects are there and the work is there, and we just got to make sure that the workers are there. I know that our union construction trades partners, for those contractors that are signatories to the union halls, they're working as close as they can to make sure that those apprentice programs are continuing to recruit and retain workers. And for those open shop members that we have, they're just doing the exact same thing, because I think the work is going to be there for a while, Eddie. And so that's so it's advantage and disadvantage at the same time. We just got to maintain that steady pace of recruitment and retention, so that we can, continue to deliver what our state agency owners and federal agency owners are asking us to.
I think you answered my second question to that in your total answer there. Recruiting and retention of the workforce, and that seems to be, across several industries. It's not just with construction, but we do see it a lot with our clients here at Brown Edwards. Workforce is a big issue when it comes to finding skilled labor, finding the right labor, finding enough labor, and then retaining them. Even if they have the right team in place, there's always somebody else out there that may pay them more. So,
yeah, it's definitely not just us, that's facing that recruitment and retention problem. But that's why we're starting now in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Trying to get into the elementary schools and middle schools to get people that college is not for everybody. Right. I mean, I'm sure you went to school with students and classmates that you knew that 4-year the degree was not for them. And our members are sometimes willing to pay for somebody to have a credential and to have a trade and have a skill. And so we're starting now 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade and trying to tell people that you can actually get a really great paying job with little to zero post-secondary debt, paid for by either the state or one of our contractor members. But it's just getting that message out there that those jobs are there. Right. And it's not just the contracting industry, but we're doing the best we can to try to steal and recruit as many members of the workforce as we can, because we know that other members of the industry are out there doing the same thing.
And I've seen it firsthand with classmates of my two sons. My oldest son was on the to be an electrician before COVID hit. And when COVID hit, things got weird in school, and remote learning just changed his path, and now he's down at Marshall. But yeah, he was on a great path to be an electrician. Friends of his went through the trade school and are working in the skilled trades right now and doing great. It's definitely a great career path, and our state needs more skilled labor. So the more that people can get out there and do, like you say, promote it and let kids know, this is an option. This is a great option. The better for our state. So, Jason, I want you to look into your crystal ball and tell me where the construction industry is in 5 to 10 years from now.
I hope we're growing as much as we are now, but more importantly, I hope that we have finally started to crack one of the state's most vexing policy problems, and that is our state's low workforce participation rate. West Virginia has been 50th in workforce participation every year as long as I've been looking at the statistics, and it's something we have to turn around. And we in the construction industry have been doing everything that we can in our part to try to turn that around. I hope that in 5 years we have a new federal highway bill, the successor to IIJA, in place. I also hope that we, at least from CAWV's perspective, I hope that we have expanded our Build It Up education initiative to be in 10, 15, 20 counties in those elementary schools to try to recruit those elementary school and middle school students that maybe think that they want to have a career in construction. And I also hope that we have been able to enhance and recruit our new members to the association that want to make, because they're going to be the next leaders of our association, because the projects are there. I think the investments in our state are going to continue from both the federal government and state government, and we just got to be there to take that ball and run with it. So the momentum is there, and I think I've heard Governor Justice use this line before. He said we can really step on our foots and really make a mistake if we're not careful. And so we got to continue to keep that momentum, and I think the future is bright as long as we can continue to recruit that next generation to make sure we have the workers to keep doing what we've been doing. What can we look forward to from you and the CAWV in the upcoming years? We've got a lot of really cool events planned over the next year as an association, but we're going to continue to do what our members expect of us, and that is to keep them informed about the latest and greatest trends in the industry. Make sure that they have what they need to be successful in their businesses, and also that they have an opportunity to contribute not just to the industry, but also to really what makes this association great, and that is the wisdom of all of the industry, and the members that that make it up. We started, I think I may have told you this, Eddie, we started for the first time last year. We did an event. See, I don't play golf at a very competitive level. But we started for the first year. First time last year, we started a Glow Golf event. That is golf after dark, where we bring in a company that that actually specializes in golf after dark, where the balls are neon and everything. And I was skeptical at first, and I think some of the older guys that were here that do play golf, they said, "Oh, that's never going to work." We sold it out within a couple of days. People really loved it, and so it's just a matter of trying new things, and if they don't work, we won't do it again. But the fact that we can bring our members together, some of our younger members, combined with some of our older members with experience that are willing to mentor younger contractors, that's really what it's all about. And so those that can't make it to the annual meeting at the Greenbrier, because we know it's mid-July and people are on vacation and they have other demands on their time, we're going to try to create some other events this fall for them to come to and experience all that's great about CAWV. And so, I'm always available for people that, have ideas for ways that we can do things better. And I hope people won't hesitate to call me if they ever have any suggestions, because I don't have all the answers. And And, we're always looking for ways to do things better.
So that just about wraps it up, Jason. Is there anything before we leave that we haven't touched on that you want to mention?
I don't think so, Eddie. We've covered a lot of ground, and I hope it's been educational, and I hope I didn't let you down for our first, or for your first inaugural podcast. I think this has been really informative for me, and I hope for those that listened, it's been informative as well.
Oh, definitely. I know we've been talking about this for a while, and it's finally come to fruition. Was really excited to get this started and get it done, but this wraps up our inaugural first episode of Constructive Conversations. Jason, I want to thank you for being with us today, and I can't wait to have you back on again sometime in the future. I'd like to let everyone know, make sure you subscribe to Brian Edwards' YouTube channel and watch for future episodes online, or you can also listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. Again, thank you, Jason, for being with us.
Thanks, Eddie, for having me.
All right. This has been your host, Eddie Thompson. So long until next time, and keep on building.